Hello everyone, Tyler here for Run Route Recon KC, and what a better way to treat your loved one than to shove them into a 5 or 10K start corral. That's right, it's time for the Sweetheart 5K and 10K brought to you by KC Running Company. Now before we get started, the disclaimers, of course. This preview is for the 2023 route. Final course details are always subject to change by the race organizers. This preview is based off of the posted course preview on the official race website, which will be posted in the description. For all the final details on and around race weekend, such as packet pickup times, race start times, and all that, be sure to visit that official race website. Also, while you're here, please support the channel, like this video, and subscribe. It really does help out. We also have an Instagram, Twitter account, both at Run Route Recon KC. And then, of course, all our information, all our videos, everything we've ever posted will also be on our website, runroutereconkc.com. Now, for these videos, I like to break them down into 4 different sections. We have basic race information, the course details, the video preview itself, and then capping it off with a personal course review and course rating. Also, a reminder, I will be posting 2 different versions of each race video going forward. One will be the preview and the race info, and then the other version will be the course itself in real time, no audio, which sometimes can be useful if you want to run alongside me real time, say on your own personal treadmill. Now with that said, let's go ahead and get to the course. So the Sweetheart 5K, 10K has been around for quite some time. They added the 10K after a few years of running the 5K. It's always kind of been at the same place. Used to be at Fiorella's. Now it's kind of moved a little bit up the road. They say it's based at Coaches in Overland Park, Kansas. Pretty much the same area, same route and everything. That's at about 137th and Antioch, though technically on Grandview Road. It is a timed event. There are age group awards. There are also co-ed team awards. Finishers medals for everybody, of course. Charity partner is Head for the Cure, if you've ever run the Head for the Cure 5K, which is taking place this year, which we are previewing as well. It's the same organization. Race start is at 9 a.m. Kids Fun Run takes place just before the 9 a.m. 5K, 10K start time at about 8:45, and that's for kids 8 years and younger. This is a very well attended race. It's sort of a local favorite every year. Last year, by my last count, there was 355K finishers, the fast of which was at 16:30 or so. And then the 10K has about 100 finishers year over year. There was almost exactly 100 last year, and the fastest last year was almost right at 38 minutes. No dogs on course for this one, which makes sense. Some of the course is relatively narrow, especially once we get onto the trails. And if you are not able to race or just don't want to bear the freezing cold temperatures that sometimes can exist with this one, there is indeed a virtual option. Now onto the course details. The 10K has about 200 feet of elevation gain. This is most during the first 5K. As a matter of fact, the 5K has about 125 feet of elevation gain. It's a little bit lumpy, especially that first half of the 5K, in fact. And there are 2, I struggle to call them hills, but they do actually add quite a bit of elevation gain, which we'll be highlighting in the videos. They mostly take place during the first 2 miles of the race. The terrain is a mix of blacktop and concrete, and a little bit of road, a little bit of paved trail, and a little bit of sidewalk even. I'll be talking about that a little bit more in detail in the video itself. Primarily, especially that 5K route, is a square neighborhood block. If you ran the kickoff 5K last weekend, or saw that preview, or ran along with me on that training video, it's pretty much the same format, although new for the 10K, instead of just doing a second loop of that neighborhood square block, you actually continue on an extension of the Tomahawk Creek Trail, which is kind of nice, actually. It's a nice and very welcome addition for the 10K. So that said, let's go ahead and get to the starting line for the 5K, 10K of the Sweetheart Run. For those that have run this route before, the start line is no different. The first 5K is no different. Where the changes really occur is in the second 5K, at least for the 10K runners, that is. Also, like before, I am going to be running on the sidewalks whenever possible for safety's sake, but for the majority, at least, of the sections of this route, you will actually be on blocked off roads. There are some exceptions to that, though, and we'll talk about those here in a little bit. Good example of route differences here. Once again, I'm going to stay to the sidewalk, but you guys will be on the road, specifically on that right side segregated bike lane. Here in this video, I count this as a hill mostly because the majority of the elevation gain that you have in this route happens within the first 5K, and this is one of the bigger ones that happen. It starts off a little bit more shallow, picks up in gradient as you get closer to the top. Once you get to 143rd Street, that's when you kind of top out on this hill. Only about 2.5% average grade, tops out at about 5% maximum grade. Now, another note, and when I've run this race in the past, we transitioned from the streets to this kind of multi-use trail right here that you see back at about 139th Street. That was back at that last stoplight that we just passed through at the start of the hill. So right here, we might still be on the street. We might be on this multi-use trail. At the very least, when we turn onto 143rd Street, coming up here at this next stoplight, we will be transitioning to the multi-use trail. I don't think I've ever run this race in the past where we've actually been on 143rd Street on the actual road itself. We've always been on this multi-use trail. Second semi-hill that I include here. This one is a lot more shallow than the first, but a little bit longer. Looking at about 2% grade, doesn't really go above 4, but you are going about the same amount of feet up in elevation, about 45 feet or so. At this point in the race, it's fairly early. This really only made a big difference on the 10K when we did a second lap of the same loop. This hill started to really wear on the legs quite a bit, but luckily we don't really have to worry about that this time. Here we get to reap the benefits of a lot of that hard work in the first half, first 5K at least. This is a really quick, rather steep downhill. Now keep in mind with downhills, yes, we do tend to gain speed. We take advantage of gravity a little bit, but we still are tearing up the quads. So very careful on this downhill and try not to break yourself too much. For 5K racers, this is the final stretch for you. You are going to take a left up here. It'll note it here in the video a little bit. And for 10K runners, you're going to continue straight, and we're going to take a little bit of a spur on the Tomahawk Creek Trail. A little bit different from years past where you just did a second loop of the 5K. If you're wanting to check out the finishing stretch, then skip ahead to the time stamp noted here on the screen. Now, admittedly, I have not run this race since they included the spur off on Tomahawk Creek Trail, so I don't know if you're going to stay on the street or if you're going to continue on the sidewalk like I am right now. It could be very possible that you continue on the street as usual from the first lap and then just hop up onto the curb and come onto the trail here. Once you do get onto the trail, however, it is a simple outback, relatively flat, a few bumps and lumps here. It is technically a little bit of an uphill for the second half after the turnaround, and you might feel it in the latter stages of a 10K race, but it's not too significant. Now, I say it's a simple out and back on Tomahawk Creek Trail, but in reality you actually do take a little bit of an offshoot from the trail, but those will be pretty well marked, I would assume. Something to keep in mind here, I did use the course details noted on the official race website, which marked this at about 6.38 miles or so. When I ran it was about 6.4, so not much different than the course posted. Obviously that's a little bit longer than a 10K, so I would somewhat expect that maybe the turnaround will be a little bit sooner than what I show here to make it an actual 10K rather than overshooting it by about 1 or 2 tenths of a mile. Return route is simply a reverse of our outbound. That said, make sure you stay to your right, look behind you when you're passing to your left so you don't run into other runners coming the opposite way. Just to reiterate, I don't know if you're going to be on the sidewalks here or whether or not you're going to be on the streets, especially with the 10K and you're going kind of reverse of the outbound. You may have some runners in your face, so I can't imagine that they would have you on the sidewalk because that would get rather tight, especially if you're running against other runners. If you have run this in the recent past, let me know in the comments which way they went for you. But obviously, we will be finding out on Saturday because I'll be racing this alongside you guys. Warm welcome back from our 5K runners. This is the finishing stretch, last 100 meters. Now with this one, I'm a little bit biased. This is sort of a yearly tradition of mine. The overall race experience is kind of what makes this one special rather than the course itself. The course is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And in fact, especially with that addition of the Tomahawk Creek Trail, the course is much better rather than having to do a double loop of the 10K. For the 5K, you still are stuck with that neighborhood kind of square loop, but really, honestly, it's kind of a pretty one. I kind of like the area, honestly. And again, I'm biased because this actually used to be a little bit of my old training stomping grounds. And of course, I'm always a big fan of taking some of these races and extending it out into a long run if I have the legs for it, at least after racing. And you have direct access to that Tomahawk Creek Trail, which is a really pretty trail, very well maintained, and I like it quite a bit. Weather is very often cold, although there have been some warmer years as of late. Although at the time of making this video, which is about 1 week ahead of time, it is forecast to be in the low 20s and sunny, which is about average for this time of year in the Kansas City area. A little bit of bias for me. I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5. Pros: challenging first 5K, especially those first 2 miles. Some might consider that a con. I consider it a little bit of a pro. There's a great race energy around this one in particular. Like I said, it's a local favorite. I really love the new trail offshoot for the 10K runners, and then really even that 5K square block, kind of a pretty area as well. Kind of a nice area to run in. Cons: some of that neighborhood block format may not be for everybody, and honestly, I've even gotten comments before that even trails and racing on the trails is not for everyone. I disagree with that one, but of course it always comes down to personal preference. And that's it. Now it's time to hear from you. Have you ever run this race in the past, either the old format or the new format? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments if you have. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe, and I will see you all at the starting line.